Look what we have got here. It has been a while, and, with baseball back in the spring leagues, AgriTalk has its regular lineup back for a Friday free-for-all. We've got to talk trade and E15 and legislation to pay the bills. And while it might not be a lot of fun, we've got to talk about what is happening in the grain markets.
Live from the final countdown to the weekend via Farm Journal broadcast, this is AgriTalk. This morning, it's a Friday free-for-all with panelist Shaun Haney from Real Ag Radio and Pro Farmer Policy OG Jim Wiesemeyer. Directly following the news, Jennifer Scheich from Farm Journal's Pork, handsome newsman Davis Michaelsen, and now, welcome the host of AgriTalk, Chip Flory.
All right, it's been almost 2 months since we've had the team together, Davis. So it is very nice to have Wiesemeyer and Haney on board for this morning's conversation. Glad that you are here to be part of that conversation with us. And boy, we've got, as I said in the open, we have got a lot of ground to cover with the spending bills, the appropriation bills. Deadlines are coming right up, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of days to get much, if any, work done between now and March 1 and March 8. So what do we do with that? I don't know. Do we kick the can further down the road, Davis?
I'm just trying to come to grips with the fact that this was only a 4-day work week. It feels like somehow they've snuck in like 8 or 9 days into this week.
And now that you're another year older, is that what you think? Just, let's just derail it and go straight back over there?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's better than coming up with an answer.
You've earned it.
But seriously, though, man, I mean, much has happened. This has been one of those quote-unquote holiday-shortened weeks that is not short at all, brother.
Right. Yeah, you've got that right. I mean, the conversation that we had yesterday with Troy Bredenkamp from Renewable Fuels Association, we touched several of those items that we are watching for the year ahead to tip in favor of ethanol in the year ahead and kind of give us a head start or a boost in the industry. And there's a lot of things that we're going to continue to watch, and we'll talk about what's on that list here this morning as well. All right, buddy, let's get to the news. What do you got?
Let's start with the weather. Light snow over parts of northern New England on Saturday. Sounds lovely. Light snow over parts of the upper Midwest to the central Appalachians. Rain along the east coast from the mid-Atlantic to the southeast on Saturday.
Yeah, a little bit of a chance for snow here in northern Iowa, but it's not going to turn into much. At least I don't think it is.
Well, Chip, you alluded to this a moment ago, but the Environmental Protection Agency announced a decision to approve petitions from 8 Midwest governors, including Iowa, allowing summertime sales of E15 within those 8 states. However, Chip, EPA will delay implementation until 2025, claiming there's not enough time to make the rule work by this summer. Iowa Renewable Fuels Association CEO Mati Shaw has mixed feelings.
Very excited that we finally have a final rule, even if it's a year and a half late, but we're equally frustrated that at the last minute they delayed it yet another year, because now we don't know what is going to come for consumers and motorists in the summer of 2024.
So there's your kick in the can down the road, Chip.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no question about it. And we will talk about this with Wiesemeyer, but when it comes to biofuels and presidential administrations, why is it that they just won't, pick? They try to make too many people happy with their decisions. Therefore, everything's kind of, it's not a full force for ethanol on this, but they're making progress.
Yeah. Well, Chip, restaurant prices were up 5.1% last month compared to January 2023. U.S. Labor Department data shows grocery store costs increased 1.2% during the same period. Relief is not on the immediate horizon as restaurant and food company executives continue wrestling with higher labor costs and more expensive ingredients. You know, we talk about those softs on a run here. Well, that impacts your food prices, Chip.
Yeah, it certainly does. No doubt.
Well, the CNN Fear and Greed indicator is currently at 78, signaling extreme greed, a significant shift from its extreme fear reading of 20 in early October. The indicator, increasingly followed on Wall Street, amalgamates 7 momentum and sentiment indicators, offering a comprehensive view of investor and market sentiment. Despite a slowdown in the farm economy and rising interest rates, ag real estate values remained robust until the close of 2023. Reports from Federal Reserve District surveys indicate that the value of non-irrigated cropland surged by up to 10% in certain regions compared to the previous year. Brazil's 2023 soybean exports reached a record 3.74 billion bushels, 29% higher than the previous year, as Brazilian production hit record levels. Meanwhile, U.S. shipments dropped 14% to 1.78 billion bushels during the same period. Together, the two countries ship over 80% of global soybean exports.
You need to fight to get some of that market share back.
Iowa Republican Senator Chuck Grassley says millions of taxpayer dollars funneled through the EPA's grant programs were not used correctly. While the funds were used to cover recipient organizations' overhead costs and operating expenses, Grassley says the expenditures did not produce tangible results that demonstrate the efficacy of the environmental justice program. Chip.
All right, Davis. Hey, thank you so much. Let's bring in Jennifer Scheich, editor, Farm Journal's Pork. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning.
So 2023 was a rough year in the hog industry, no question. But there are some shining spots out there, and exports are one of them.
Yeah, a real big one. I mean, this year, the numbers came in December, and everybody expected the year to end well, but I think it was just a little bit better than I guess I expected from what I had been hearing analysts say. We ended up being just shy of 30% of U.S. pork production going out in exports. And, that's a really significant amount. And when you think about how tough the year has been for hog farmers, being able to have an extra, that $65 contributed to the price of a pig coming from the value of exports.
Jeez.
Every dollar matters. And so, really exciting stuff. Mexico continued to lead the way as being the record breaker this year in both volume and value for where exports went. And so that's pretty exciting. I mean, Mexico is huge for us. Obviously, ham continues to be kind of the main draw there, but we're really doing a lot of work to push the pork loin and its versatility and its nutritional profile, not only in Mexico, but in all of our markets that we're trying to export more pork to. So lots of big things moving there. But I think for me, the thing that stood out to me was this isn't just a fluke, and it wasn't just kind of a blip on the radar, because we are seeing a really great start to 2024. In fact, last week was, they said it was the largest weekly export volume on record. So year to date, we're up nearly 30% in pork exports this year.
Already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's good news. Yeah.
You bet. We're talking about some silver lining there for the hog industry. $65 a head, and it's probably going to be more than that in 2024 is what exports mean to the bottom line. Jennifer, great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Get more on that at www.porkbusiness.com. The free-for-all is coming up next. Jim Wiesemeyer, Shaun Haney, Davis Michaelsen, and me.
In the morning, you're coffeeed up and you're thinking. In the afternoon, you've calmed down, but you're still thinking. We're here all day. AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. Glad you're with us for this Friday free-for-all. Davis is here. I think.
Yes.
There he is.
Yeah.
There he is.
What? Oh, yeah.
Pro Farmer Policy Analyst Jim Wiesemeyer. How
I'm
you doing,
here,
Jim?
Chip.
All
Pretty
right,
good.
buddy. All right, and Real Agriculture, Real Ag Radio's Shaun Haney. How you doing, Shaun?
Heidi ho, great to be here, Chip.
Yep, it's good to have the team together. We got baseball being played already, guys.
Wow. Yeah, and what the Dodgers scored yesterday, like 8 runs in the first inning?
Yeah,
Man,
something like that. Yeah, so more unnecessary rules to speed up the game. I don't like seeing that, but here we go. Here we go.
Chip Flory, the purist.
Yep. Leave it alone. There's no clock in baseball. Shouldn't be anyway. All right, let's get to this because, Jim, March 1, we've got the first deadline on the appropriation bills, which includes ag spending, the USDA budget, and then then the rest of the appropriations have a deadline of March 8th. I don't know how they're going to get anything done by March 8th, Jim.
Yeah, well, the House comes back the 28th and the Senate the 26th. So sometime this weekend, Chip, we could see something break as far as possible negotiations, but it's still going to take time. So odds would favor at least another attempt for an extension. Now, some of the conservatives in the House Republican Party don't want that, but we'll see. I think there'll be another extension. But Democrats will not go for any extension beyond April 30th because you'll recall that'll trigger that 1% across the board spending cut.
I'm hearing some comments from the Republicans that instead of preparing for another extension, it's time to prepare for a shutdown.
You do hear that, and you've seen a number of congressional aides have been quoted that they say, "Oh, there's so much to do. We could have a short-term shutdown until they can get an agreement on the March 1, funding levels." As you said, it includes USDA, but I don't think the Republican leadership wants that to occur. But he's eventually going to have to, the speaker, Mike Johnson, Republican, Louisiana, it's going to have to deal with the Democrats. And frankly, if there's any call to do away with Johnson, the Democrats are signaling that they'll give him the votes to keep in office. So that's the tonic you need to get at these rebels in the House.
Yeah. Well, and that's a big change from what happened to McCarthy because the Democrats refused to save McCarthy. So that's a bit of a shift. But, if you listen to some of the speeches from CPAC yesterday, when they talked about government shutdown, there was a lot of cheers in the audience.
Yeah.
So there is definitely a portion on the Republican side that believe the best possible thing is a shutdown, and all of that's in reference to the border issues. Fix the border issue first, or you're not getting an extension or funding or anything, which is that's a real bit of a Old West standoff.
Yeah, shut down or shut the border. We went through that the last time.
Yeah.
And they caved. The Republicans caved again. And so, again, you're going to need Democratic votes to get it through. So you may as well, you've got to compromise. Now,
what are you talking about here? The appropriations or the border?
Well, both, but especially appropriations. Yeah, because the rebels in the House Republican side, and including the Freedom Caucus, put out a list of riders, amendments they want on this bill, and the Democrats clearly will not go along with them. So it's not based in reality, Chip. So sooner or later, the speaker is going to have to make a decision. Okay, do we just work with the Democrats again so I get the votes in order to pass an actual extension first and then try to come up with a total agreement on the appropriation bills? They may have to divide some of these bills up again into individual bills.
I was just going to ask if they were going to chop it up.
They could possibility.
His goose is cooked if he sides, he takes some Democrat votes to make this happen.
Because the Democrats will give him the votes to stay in.
But
do you really think?
I do.
And okay, so and how long does that last? and we will see a significant turn from the CPAC crowd in doing everything possible to remove the Rhino Speaker Johnson.
Yeah, well, you won't. Nothing will be done after this until the November 5th elections anyway. So not much is going to happen. So let's get on with it.
So it's not just priority one, it's the only priority is get the spending bills done and so
campaign. Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen.
The other alternative here isn't it to just take a 1% across the board spending cut on everything?
Well, some people may want that, but boy, your defense doesn't need that, Chip. So your conservatives won't like this 1% across the board spending cut, and the Democrats won't back it either. So there's your dilemma. They don't want that 1% across the board. So there's elements of compromise here, but both sides are going to have to give. Both sides.
Spending is never going to get under control, is it?
Unless the bond market in a few years from now realizes that Washington can't solve problems, so they'll pounce, and that's when it gets really ugly.
If there is a compromise, okay, so Johnson takes some votes from the Democrat side. How does that play into the election narrative? And is it help or hurt either of the sides?
If you have a shutdown, I don't care what the Republicans say, it'll hurt the Republican Party. They're always blamed for shutdowns, and it'll be as a result of the rebel conservatives. So you don't want a shutdown. Even the leadership should understand that. Eventually, you're going to have to fund. There's two major reasons for the Washington government is to protect our country, and that's more the executive branch as well, and then to fund the government, that's Congress. Period. So, again, get on with it. They're going to have compromises in the spending levels. And so we're going to see, I think this weekend, if you don't have some sort of announcement by Saturday or Sunday that we've reached a framework agreement, that's usually the phrase they use, but we may need a few more days to get this done, even though they've been off 2 weeks, by the way, in the House, 2 weeks. I think that's going to have to, I think that's the way it'll happen. But if there's a few days shutdown, I don't know how that will be read, politically. Maybe they can get by with a few days of shutdown.
Yeah, I think they could. And it feels like it feels to me like if Johnson wants to hold on to his leadership role, he might have to manage Congress through 3, 4, 5 days of a shutdown and then bring it back and get things done.
Well, I heard this week that he's been having a hard time fundraising because some people don't want to raise, don't want to bother getting a whole bunch of money stirred up for him because they don't think he's going to be there that long. So that's not going to help his cause either.
So maybe he doesn't care about that. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Okay, Jim, here's at the end of last year, when you were out giving speeches everywhere, one of the things that you were talking about that I think caught everybody's attention was the dysfunction of this Congress, and you were kind of rating it. Is it just how bad is it? Is it worse today than it was at the end of the year?
Yes. In my speeches now, I say it's not like herding cats, it's herding feral cats.
Oh, boy.
That's the best way I can explain it to an audience.
Well, I gave a speech last week where I had like a garbage bin and it was on fire. Does that fall into it as well?
So you're into pyrotechnics now at Real Ag?
It does get a good laugh from the audience. It's cheap humor.
I'll bet, Jim. Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady, who's coming up here with Markets Now in just a moment, and I emailed back and forth a little bit, and the combination of what is happening in Congress, the combination of what is happening in presidential politics, it just makes me wonder how we got to where we're at. I know we can't answer that question in a short period of time But let's talk presidential politics next.
Time for Markets Now with the experts from ProFarmer.
ProFarmer editor Brian Grady joins us right now. Beej, I almost want to take today off.
All right. Yes.
March
same,
Corn's
March same Corn's stuff, different day.
Yeah, it is. It is. March Corn's got a low of 398.5 today. What's going on?
Yeah. So below $4, obviously there, and new contract lows, and just more of the same. Just cannot get any kind of traction in here. We saw some corrective buying overnight, and that was generally across the grain and soy markets. But boy, it's pretty broad based here this morning. Soybeans, they're leading us to the downside, and they had a new marketing year low for export sales, and just
terrible.
Yeah, just not much friendly news right now. Wheat actually has been performing much better than the other markets, but even the wheat markets are under pressure this morning.
Yeah, just 55,900 metric tons of bean sales in the latest reporting period. Just an absolute terrible total on bean sales there. Take us over to the livestock trade. Things look good there.
Oh, much better. So, moderate to strong gains across the cattle market this morning. Live cattle and feeder cattle both are trading solidly to the upside. We have the cattle on feed report this afternoon. Placements expected to be down almost 12% from a year ago. So that'll be a critical number in that data set as we look at that after the markets close this afternoon. And then hog futures, they continue to push to the upside. Now, April had a big up day intraday yesterday and trading within that range today, but higher.
Good stuff, Brian. Great. Thanks, buddy. ProFarmer editor Brian Grady.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. You're listening to AgriTalk, where the conversation begins. Join us at 855-4-TALK-AG.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. Glad that you are with us. We've got the free-for-all going today. Davis Michaelsen, Jim Wiesemeyer from ProFarmer, Shaun Haney from RealAgriculture, Real Ag Radio. California Governor Newsom is in Washington, D.C. again, Jim. Are we getting closer to swapping out candidates?
Well, there's a governor's meeting, so I think it's not a direct connection. But we still don't know who's going to be the candidates. Despite on the Republican side, Trump, the clear signal, but with his legal problems, will there be a verdict against him? If that's the case, this is why Nikki Haley wants to stay on board, Chip, because Iowa caucus and New Hampshire primary participants said 1/3 of each said that they wouldn't vote for Trump if that were to occur. And on the Democratic side, Biden's numbers continue to go down. Gallup had him approval rating of 38% and dismal on a number of issues, especially immigration. And he's trying to come up with border security angles that you'll see announced soon, if not this weekend. And it's a little late for that.
Yesterday I heard an interview with, and I've never heard him speak before. I know nothing about him, but I was impressed by his comments. The governor for Utah, Spencer Cox, who's a Republican, he is chair of the Governors Association. And you want to talk about pushing for bipartisan, reaching across the aisle, listening to different perspectives, trying to understand, just sort of some of the common sense that sort of used to happen and was less of the tribal stuff. I really was impressed by the interview that I heard with him. He's maybe an up-and-comer.
Normally I would say, wow, yeah, I like that. In this case, I think I'm going to say it works in Utah. I don't know if it works in D.C.
Well, that's one of the problems, yeah. There you go.
And that's part of the issue with how we ended up where we are with the choices that we've got for this fall. We've discouraged and basically scared off what could be some really good candidates from raising their hand and saying, yes, the United States needs my leadership. I'm the guy to do the job, and here's why I can do it. And in the case of some that have proven their leadership abilities, that did raise their hand, that did campaign, they were still pushed aside by the by the Trump, the attractiveness to Trump, Jim. I don't know how else to explain it.
Well, the extremes in both parties are really running the parties right now. And I'll tell you, I've talked to a lot of younger voters, and they really don't identify anymore with the traditional Democrat or Republican. They're more libertarian, populist, and I think that's going with what we're seeing right now. I think it's the Middle Ages of U.S. politics, and we'll be over it in about a couple of years once this election is over. I was asked at the Missouri Pork Expo, which was a great meeting in the Ozarks, by a person in the audience who's actually pushing Biden to seek re-election, because we all know he's in trouble. And when I got that question, I immediately said his wife, Jill. Why would you put your husband through that?
I don't know.
So, and I saw a lot of head shake in the audience. So,
but that's the impression that I've got too, Jim.
Yeah. And on the Republican side, I mean, Trump should be further ahead of Biden in the polls. And he isn't. And Nikki Haley says this. She's up 15 to 17 points against Biden, where Trump is 4 to 5%, maybe as much as 7. I doubt it. 4 to 5 percentage. That signals Trump. He may win the selection on the Republicans, but he's going to have trouble winning the White House.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was Mark Halpern from Newsmax said that what it's going to take is Jill Biden, or it's going to take maybe the Obamas to sit President Biden down and say, Joe, it's over.
Yeah.
You need to do if you really believe in what's best for the party and what you think is best for the country, you need to give us a shot. And giving us a shot is not you as the candidate. If that doesn't happen, he's maybe the candidate.
And
Isn't
the shot will come if no, it isn't. Lyndon Johnson went out March 31st, 1968. So there's super delegates on the Democratic side that you can, maneuver, or even as late as the convention. Not easy, but it can be done. But here's the thing: without Biden on the ticket, the enthusiasm factor comes back to the Democrats' favor. Right now, there's a gap. The enthusiasm is not there, and that's why I think Trump is ahead in the polls, because you'll have a significant number of Democrats who just won't come to vote. They won't vote for Trump, but they just won't vote.
Yeah, interesting. Jim, very early on in this whole discussion about if Biden would decide I'm not going to run, how late is too late? Your argument all along has been he doesn't want to be a lame ducker for any longer than what he needs to be. And based on that, now I'm seeing commentary that he may wait until the convention to make the announcement that he's not going to run.
I wouldn't rule that out. I really think he wants to go minimally until the State of the Union address, March the 7th, Chip. And and he wants to see how he does. What is the reaction? I think that's his last pitch to the American public. That's where you have your last audience. After that, it's all politics after that. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. Let's talk a little trade issues. Page 4 this week of Pro Farmer. I don't want to read it word for word. I wish we could, because it's awesome. It is really, really worth the time to spend reading that. But we had Bob Hemisath on earlier this week. He is a farmer from Decorah. He's very involved in Iowa Corn, NCGA. He's the new president of Farmers for Free Trade. And we talked about the multi-country trade deals, using those deals as leverage on China, that he would like to see more of that from the Biden administration. And then he talked about looking forward to a Trump administration with the potential tariffs, and he just doesn't want any part of that. Jim, I thought it was a fairly, benign conversation. But, boy, there's a group out on social media that says, hey, let's hear the other side of this. So what is the other side of this? What's wrong with free trade?
Well, read Bob Lighthizer book, Remember Last June, No Free Trade. There's one answer. Two is that the other side is, as we say in Proforma this week, tariffs have apparently become good politics, Chip, both political parties. Mm-hmm. We have turned isolationist, protectionist, and that's scary. Our headline in page 4 is Trump's trade policy proposals is scare tactic or scary. That's both sides, because some people say, oh, you're just trying to scare people with this. Trump and Lighthizer think that we've been taken for pansies relative to trade. There's your other side, Chip. They want to put a 10% across the board tariffs on most, if not all, imports into this country to whittle down the trade deficit. And they're saying then countries will still want to trade with us. I have my doubts on a couple countries, but still that is their approach right there.
So it's feeding on the narrative of we're being taken advantage of.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so, when the question is, if we just use USMCA as an example, has it not been reciprocal? What about that agreement isn't reciprocal? Like, I just looked at beef. The last 2 years, Canada has imported each year 300,000 head of feeder cattle. Okay. And imported last year about 100 tons for each of the last 5 years. So
100 tons of what?
Of beef.
Okay.
Of box beef.
Okay.
So there's a lot of, and you can pick on things that are not, like, could be improved. Obviously, dairy is one of them. But there is way more examples of how a free trade agreement like that, and that is a free trade agreement, how that provides opportunity for both countries. But if all you hear is we're being taken advantage of, then that's what you're going to believe. And so I'm just trying to understand what the other side is. And I think the other side potentially is don't be in multilateral agreements. Do what Lighthizer and Trump did, which was one-offs. We're gonna go at one country and we're gonna like twist and grind them, sort of like they did with Japan. And instead of being a part of the CPTPP, they did an agreement with Japan. That requires a lot more resources, because then you got to do individual agreements with all of those countries that would have been in that multilateral deal. But if that's the path you choose to go, then that's the path you choose to go. But the whole idea behind the CPTPP was to act as a collective against China, as a anti-China policy. So,
yes, that is exactly right. It was about ganging up to gain leverage and some advantage over China in some of the issues, and that's not happening. But and the Lighthizer book, I'll give it to you. It's very, very compelling, and it does set up the possibility, if there is another Trump administration, that these tariffs are going to be something that we're going to have to deal with for at least 4 more years. Wow. We'll be right back.
On your favorite radio station or your preferred digital device, AgriTalk is live every weekday.
All right, welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. We got the free-for-all going. Jim Wiesemeyer, Shaun, Haney. Before I get Haney, you're going to be down in Houston next week at Commodity Classic, right?
I am.
Yes.
And I am really looking forward to it. This is like fresh off of CattleCon a couple weeks ago. Now we dive into the crop side with Commodity Classic. It's gonna be a really good time. I think I'm there Thursday and Friday, so looking forward to it.
Good. Well, we'll be watching for you, and we'll have to get together while we're down there. Big Apple Joe and I will be down there Wednesday through Friday, and we've got a full broadcast schedule that we will make sure that everybody is aware of before we get down there. Wiesemeyer, we got E15 available in the 8 Midwest states that want it, and I want to be happy about it, but we got to wait until April of 2025 to get it, at least on the permanent side. Secretary Vilsack has indicated that there should be a reasonable assumption that there will be a waiver available for 2024 so that we can continue to get the unleaded 88. But, it's progress, isn't it?
It's progress, but again, it's like the football was taken away at the last time again.
Yeah.
And Trump did this too, when he tried to appease both sides. Remember with Senator Cruz on the RINs and things like that. So
small refinery exemptions.
Yes, it's just, you just shake your head. Now, it'll be curious when you're down at the Commodity Classic. Vilsack and Regan, EPA Administrator Michael Regan, will be there. So they'll spin it. They'll spin this and other things, but we'll see. But the big kahuna is coming up here, Chip, with the ethanol as eligible sustainable aviation fuel feedstock,
Right.
We'll see about that
model.
Yes, and then because we had some modifications of that in rumor mill this past week of whether or not farmers are going to have to comply with climate smart practices. So we're going to see on that. They tend to water down everything lately in the biofuels arena.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
You saw this week, Boeing was complaining about the lack of action on sustainable aviation fuel, basically saying there needs to be more supply.
Yeah, they are looking for the product. There's no question about it. Well, if we need to have the pathway cleared for the production of said product, and the best way to make that happen is don't make any major adjustments to the GREET model regarding land use issues, and let's get corn-based ethanol as a feedstock into sustainable aviation fuel, the old ethanol to jet that we've been talking about for quite some time. It was a Reuters report that spun some uncertainty into it at the start of this week, Jim. But it was stuff that we already knew, wasn't it?
We did know because they had, yes, I agree. They gave the signal that it was going to be a modified GREET model. So, I thought, wow, what's the change here,
Yeah.
But the market wanted to focus on that. Now, if in the analysis, I always want to wait to the official announcement to analyze it. But if it is detrimental at all to the total volume of corn-based ethanol, you're going to go under $4 longer than people think, Jeff.
Oh,
I was just going to say, like, these markets could use some good news to find somewhat of a bottom here.
Yeah,
it's ugly.
Yeah, we certainly could use some good news, no doubt. Like we were talking about with Grady at the bottom of the hour, we've still got a low at 398.5 in March corn, trading back on top of $4, but it's no certainty that we're going to hang on there. We had a caller into yesterday afternoon show, Paul, up in northeast Nebraska, northeast Iowa, went to a carbon intensity scoring meeting. It's one that Mitchell Hora, Continuum Ag, put on, and Jimmy Emmons from Trust and Food was there as well. But what Paul learned at this meeting was, get this, based on what he is doing right now, his corn should be eligible for $1.10 in 45Z credits, $1.10 a bushel in 45Z credits. Now, you split that between the ethanol plant and Paul, and he says you're talking about 55 cents a bushel, $200 or $100 an acre. Let's do that all day long. He's willing to make that swap.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's without changing anything. Okay.
Yeah, it's got to be in a contract, Chip.
Oh, well, of course.
Yeah,
in a contract. Of course.
And
you're not going to shake hands on this one.
No, I'm beginning to see some of this. You know, Peter Meyer was at the, Top Producer Summit, talked about some of these things, and ARVA Intelligence, who I know quite well, are putting, muscle into their plan as well. Any farmer should at least look them up, by the way, because I think some good news is going to come out in the year ahead on some really exciting stuff on carbon mitigation program on the positive side for farmers.
Yeah. This is getting paid for what is already being done. You can't double dip on these programs. You can't go to one of the carbon sequestration contracts and say, yeah, I want to be part of that change up process and get paid from them and get paid from the 45Z credits. That's how I understand it. But if you can work together with farmers around you to put the lowest carbon intensity score corn into an ethanol plant to get the lowest carbon intensity score corn possible, ethanol possible out of that plant, man, oh man, it seems like that might be, there might be some opportunities there. All right, fellas, great work. We'll see you next week. Haney, Jim, have a great week.
Sure, thank you.
All right, that is this week's Free For All. Come back this afternoon. We're going to have a conversation with Darren Fry, Water Street Solutions, right here on AgriTalk.